She thought losing her mother was the worst pain she'd ever feel, until her stepmother tore her skin with burning knives. But what they didn't know was, Khalima's spirit was stronger than any scar. Stay with us, because her rise will leave you breathless. In the heart of the African wilderness, nestled among rolling hills and lush green forests, there was a village named Amujwa. The village was peaceful, and its people were kind and hard-working. Among them lived a young girl named Khalima, whose beauty was as striking as the sun at dawn. Her smile could light up the darkest room, and her heart was as pure as gold. Khalima was beloved by all, her kindness radiating through every interaction. Yet, despite her outer beauty and gentle spirit, Khalima's life was about to take a cruel and heart-wrenching turn. After the tragic death of her beloved mother, her father, Jamal, remarried a woman named Kyra. At first, Khalima hoped that her new stepmother might bring a sense of warmth into her life. But Kyra, a woman as cold as the winter night, harbored a deep jealousy toward Khalima. From the very beginning, Kyra's eyes burned with envy every time she saw Khalima's radiant. Unlike the other villagers, Kyra could never see Khalima's kindness. All she saw was a threat to her own power. Day by day, her jealousy grew, and she began to plot ways to destroy the very spirit that made Khalima shine. At first, it was small acts of cruelty, harsh words and cold stares. But as time went on, Kyra's cruelty escalated, leaving Khalima's once happy home filled with tension and fear. Khalima, though hurt, continued to live with grace, hiding her pain behind her radiant smile. But deep inside, she knew the storm brewing in her stepmother's heart was far from over. What Khalima didn't yet understand was that Kyra's jealousy would soon manifest in a way more terrifying than she could have ever imagined. Her life in Amujwa was about to be shattered, but Khalima's spirit, though fragile, would remain unbroken, for she had a strength that even Kyra's malice couldn't touch. As the years passed, Khalima blossomed into an even more beautiful young woman. Her gentle nature and radiant smile captivated everyone in the village, from the children playing in the streets to the elders who admired her wisdom. But as Khalima grew, so did Kyra's hatred. Every day, the jealousy inside her twisted like a poison, filling her heart with bitterness. She couldn't stand to see her stepdaughter shining so brightly while she, Kyra, lived in the shadow of that beauty. It drove her to madness. One day, when the village was quiet and the sun hung low in the sky, Kyra decided that Khalima's beauty would be her undoing. She lured Khalima to the far end of the village, a desolate place where no one could hear a scream or see a tear fall. There, hidden from the watchful eyes of the villagers, Kyra revealed the true depth of her cruelty. She had prepared a horrific tool, burning hot knives, ready to tear into Khalima's soft skin. Khalima, trembling but brave, stood before her stepmother, unsure of what was to come, but determined not to show fear. Kyra's eyes gleamed with malice as she pressed the red-hot knives against Khalima's delicate skin. The pain was unbearable, a torment that Khalima had never known. But not once did she scream, not once did she beg for mercy. The only sound in the air was the crackling of the fire as Kyra's cruel actions marked Khalima's body forever. Kyra's rage knew no limits. With each knife stroke, she tore at Khalima's skin, leaving deep, searing scars. Khalima's back, once smooth and beautiful, was now marred by the cruel hand of her stepmother. Yet, through all the excruciating pain, Khalima remained silent. Not a single cry escaped her lips, even as tears of anguish welled up in her eyes. She refused to let Kyra see the impact of her cruelty. In the face of such torment, Khalima held on to something far stronger than pain, a resilience that would keep her spirit alive, no matter what. Kyra, seeing Khalima's silence, was furious. She had hoped to break Khalima, to see her beg, to see her weak. But Khalima, though battered and bruised, stood as strong as ever. The cruelty that Kyra inflicted on Khalima only fueled the fire inside the young girl. Kyra believed she had won, that she had crushed Khalima's spirit. But in reality, she had only made Khalima stronger. Khalima would not be defined by the scars on her skin. The true strength of her spirit lay deep within her, untouched by Kyra's hatred. And one day, Khalima would rise, more powerful than anyone could ever imagine. Despite the horrific scars left on her back by Kyra's cruelty, Khalima's spirit remained unshaken. Her body, now a canvas of pain and suffering, did nothing to diminish the light that shone from within her. In fact, The marks on her skin became a quiet testament to her strength, a symbol that no matter how deep the wounds, the soul could remain unbroken. Each day, Khalima carried herself with grace and dignity, as if her heart was untouched by the torment she had endured. She never allowed the scars to define her. Instead, she continued to live with purpose, her resilience shining brighter than ever before. Khalima's daily life was filled with work, but she never complained. She still cared for the animals on the family farm, tending to them with the same love and kindness she always had. Whether it was feeding the goats, milking the cows, or gathering firewood, she did it all without hesitation. Her heart was full of compassion, and even though her own life had been filled with pain, she shared that love with those around her. The villagers, who had once admired her for her beauty, now admired her for something far greater, her incredible strength and unwavering spirit. She also continued to cook for her family, putting every ounce of love into the meals she prepared. Despite the cruelty she faced at home, it wasn't easy living under the same roof as Kyra, who seemed to take pleasure in making Khalima's life more difficult. But Khalima never let her stepmother's hatred shake her. When the villagers came to her for help, whether it was for a kind word or for assistance with a task, she was always there. Her heart was open, and her hands were ready to help anyone in need, no matter how much she herself was suffering. Khalima never spoke of the pain she carried with her, nor did she let it show in the way she interacted with others. Instead, she wore her scars like a badge of honor, a symbol of the battles she had fought and survived. Her resilience was not only in the way she kept going in the face of hardship, but in the way she refused to let her torment define her. Her inner strength became something the village whispered about, something that inspired others to find their own courage. As the years passed, the story of Khalima's suffering and resilience spread far beyond Amujwa. People came to understand that while Khaira had scarred Khalima's body, she could never break her spirit. Khalima had become a living proof that the strength of the human heart could never be measured by the physical. The beauty that Khaira sought to destroy had only grown, not in the way Khalima looked, but in the way she lived, loving, kind, and unyielding in the face of cruelty. She was more than the sum of her scars. She was a force to be reckoned with. One day, as the sun began to set over Amujwa, a wise elder named Mzee Wali passed through the village. Mzee Wali was known far and wide for his wisdom and knowledge, and many sought his counsel in times of trouble. As he walked through the village, his sharp eyes caught sight of Khalima. Despite her worn appearance and the visible scars on her back, it was her spirit that drew him in. There was something about the way she carried herself, despite all the pain she had endured, that made her stand out. Her strength was not just in her physical resilience, but in the quiet way she moved through the world, untouched by the hatred that had tried to break her. Mzee Wali was moved by her unwavering dignity. It wasn't every day that he encountered someone with such a pure and resilient heart. Khalima's spirit shone brightly, even in the darkest of circumstances, and Mzee Wali knew that he had to speak with her. He found her tending to the animals as usual, her hands working with care and kindness, her eyes soft, yet filled with an inner strength. The elder approached her, and with a voice filled with gentle authority, spoke to her. "Khalima," he said, "I have seen many things in my time, but the strength you carry within you is like none I have ever witnessed. Your scars are deep, yes, but your spirit is deeper still. You have been through much pain, yet you stand tall, not broken but strong. There is something in you, something powerful, but there is more to your journey than just surviving." Khalima looked up at the wise elder, surprised by his words. She had never spoken of her pain, never let anyone see the weight of her scars. But somehow, this elder saw through her quiet strength, recognizing the torment that lay beneath her calm exterior. Mzee Wali continued, "The scars on your body, they may never fully fade, but there is a way to heal your heart, Khalima, to truly rise above the hate that has been placed upon you. You must forgive, not for them, but for yourself. You must release the anger and the pain that holds you back. Only then will your spirit be truly free." Khalima listened intently, her heart both heavy and hopeful. Forgiveness, she thought, seemed impossible after all she had suffered, but the elder's words planted a seed in her heart. Perhaps, in forgiving, she could find the peace she had longed for. Perhaps, in rising above the hate, she could heal in ways that went beyond what the eye could see. Mzee Wali's words stayed with Khalima long after their conversation ended. She knew that the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. The scars on her body no longer defined her. What mattered now was the strength of her heart, and how she chose to rise above the darkness that had tried to consume her. The journey of healing had just begun. Determined to heal both her body and her spirit, Khalima embarked on a journey that would test her like never before. She had heard whispers of the Ngala root, a rare and powerful plant known to have extraordinary healing properties. Legends spoke of its ability to heal not just physical wounds, but the deepest of emotional scars as well. It was said to grow deep in the heart of the jungle, where few dared to venture. But Khalima was no longer afraid of the unknown. Her will to heal was stronger than any fear that might stand in her way. With her heart set on her goal, Khalima set off at dawn, the first rays of sunlight casting a warm glow over the path ahead. The journey was far from easy. The path led her across a treacherous river, its waters swift and dangerous. As she stood at the edge, she could feel the weight of the current pulling at her. But Khalima was not one to shy away from challenges. She gathered her courage, waded into the waters, and swam with all her might, the cold water stinging her skin, but never once slowing her down. Her determination pushed her forward, and soon she was on the other side, the river behind her, and her resolve stronger than ever. The journey took Khalima through the scorching desert, where the sun blazed relentlessly overhead, and the air felt like fire against her skin. The heat was unbearable, and every step felt like a struggle, but Khalima pressed on. She didn't stop to rest, didn't let the exhaustion take hold of her. She knew that if she gave up now, she would never find the healing she so desperately needed. She reminded herself of the pain she had endured, the cruelty of her stepmother, and the scars that marred her back. But most of all, she reminded herself of the words Mziwali had spoken. Forgiveness and healing were within her reach, and she had the strength to find them. Through the days and nights, Khalima kept moving, never allowing herself to look back. Her heart was focused on the future where she could be free of the weight of her past, free of the hatred and the pain. But her journey was not just about her healing. It was also about the justice she believed would one day come to Kyra. Khalima knew that Kyra's cruelty couldn't go unpunished forever, and the thought of Kyra facing the consequences of her actions gave Khalima a fierce sense of purpose. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of hardship, Khalima arrived at the hidden jungle where the Ngala root was said to grow. With her body weary and her heart full of hope, she searched the dense forest, her eyes scanning every inch of the ground. And there, in a small clearing bathed in golden sunlight, she found it, the Ngala root, its leaves glowing with an almost magical light. Khalima knelt down and gently dug it from the earth, feeling a sense of triumph wash over her. She had made it. The healing she had sought for so long was now within her grasp. Her journey had only just begun, but Khalima knew one thing for certain: nothing could stop her now. As Khalima continued her journey through the jungle, the air grew thick with the scent of earth and ancient trees. The dense forest seemed to breathe around her, its quiet whispers urging her forward. One evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, she stumbled upon an old, majestic tree, unlike any she had seen before. Its trunk was twisted and gnarled, its branches stretching wide as if reaching toward the heavens. The tree had an aura about it, something both ancient and powerful, as if it held secrets long forgotten. Khalima, drawn by its mysterious presence, stepped closer. As she stood beneath the tree's vast branches, a cool breeze swept through the forest, and the air seemed to shift. Suddenly, she felt a presence, not seen but deeply felt, surrounding her. A voice, soft but clear, echoed in her mind. It was the voice of her ancestors, calling her. "Khalima, child of the earth, daughter of the spirit, hear us," the voice said. "We have watched you struggle, watched you endure pain and suffering. You carry the strength of our blood in your veins, and it is time for you to remember." Khalima stood still, her heart racing but her feet rooted to the ground. She could feel the power of the tree, the presence of her ancestors, filling her with a deep sense of calm. The spirits spoke of times long past, of their own struggles and triumphs, of how they too had faced cruelty and hardship. Yet they had never let their spirits be broken. They reminded Khalima that the true source of healing was not found in the Ngala root or in any external remedy. It was found deep within, in the strength of her own soul. "Your scars do not define you," the voice continued. "It is your spirit that is unbreakable. Remember who you are, Khalima. You are the child of warriors, the daughter of the earth. No one can take away your power unless you allow them to." As the words of her ancestors sank into her heart, Khalima felt a surge of energy, a strength that came from deep within her. It was as if the weight of her past, the pain and the scars, were being lifted off her shoulders. She could feel the anger and the hurt melt away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of peace. The ancestors had shown her the truth. Her healing was not just about mending her body, but about reclaiming the power she had always carried inside. Khalima closed her eyes, feeling the spirit's presence all around her. She knew that she had been chosen to carry their strength, their wisdom, and their resilience. The spirits reminded her that no matter what happened next, her spirit would remain invincible. No one, not even Khaira, could take that from her. As the wind whispered through the branches, Khalima opened her eyes, feeling more powerful than ever. She bowed her head in gratitude to her ancestors, knowing that with their strength guiding her, nothing could stand in her way. With renewed confidence, she continued her journey, no longer just seeking healing but walking as a woman transformed, unbreakable, unstoppable, and filled with the power of generations that came before her. After months of grueling trials and endless searching, Khalima finally returned to her village, the Nagala root clutched tightly in her hands. She was tired, her body weary from the long journey, but there was a new fire in her eyes, one of determination, hope, and an unspoken promise to herself that she would heal. The villagers who had once seen her as the girl, marked by pain and sorrow, now saw a woman whose spirit was unyielding, who had returned not only with the powerful Ngala root, but also with a strength that radiated from within. Khalima wasted no time. She carefully prepared the Ngala root, boiling it slowly until the essence of the root filled the air with a soothing fragrance. She poured the liquid into a bowl, its rich golden color gleaming in the sunlight. As she began to apply it to her wounds, she could feel the heat of the healing mixture seeping into her skin. Slowly, like a miracle, her skin began to heal. The deep scars that Khaira had left upon her body started to fade, the marks of cruelty transforming into symbols of strength. Khalima could feel the pain from the past, lifting from her, as if the very essence of the Ngala root was pulling it away. But while the physical healing was evident, Khalima knew that her journey wasn't complete. The emotional scars, the hurt, the betrayal, the anger that had lived deep within her still lingered. They were harder to heal than any wound on her skin. She could no longer carry the weight of her anger, but it wasn't easy. The thought of Khaira's cruelty still burned in her heart, the memory of the hot knives still fresh in her mind. Khalima knew that, to truly heal, she had to forgive. With Mzi Wali's guidance, she began to understand that forgiveness wasn't just about letting go of the past. It was about freeing herself from the chains of hate and resentment. It was about taking back the power that Khaira had stolen from her. Mzi Wali had spoken the truth when he told her that healing came from within. Khalima's heart, like her body, had to heal. She started the difficult work of releasing her anger, not for Khaira, but for herself. Every day she practiced letting go of the pain, of the bitterness that had once consumed her. At first it was hard. The memories of her stepmother's cruelty were vivid and sharp, and it seemed impossible to forget what had been done to her. But over time, as she worked with the Ngala root and reflected on the wisdom Mzi Wali had shared, Khalima began to feel lighter. The anger that had weighed so heavily on her heart started to dissipate, replaced by a calm, quiet strength. She realized that forgiving Khaira didn't mean excusing her actions. It meant freeing herself from the power Khaira had over her. As her skin healed, so did her soul. Khalima found peace in forgiveness, and with that peace came a sense of freedom she had never known. Her transformation was not just physical, it was a complete rebirth, a renewal of the spirit. She had gone from being a girl, broken by cruelty, to a woman who had taken control of her destiny. Khalima had healed, not just because of the Ngala root, but because she had learned the most important lesson of all. The power to heal lies within each of us, and it begins with forgiveness. Back in the village, things were starting to change, and Khaira could feel it. Khalima, once the broken girl with scars that told stories of pain, had transformed. Her beauty was no longer just in her face, but in her spirit, her strength, and her confidence. The villagers, who had once whispered about her misfortune, now looked at her with admiration. It was clear to everyone that Khalima had risen above the suffering Khaira had caused. But for Khaira, that was a problem. She couldn't stand the thought of Khalima becoming stronger, of her taking away the control that Khaira had worked so hard to maintain. The power she once had over Khalima was slipping away, and she couldn't allow that. Fearing that Khalima's transformation might mean her own downfall, Khaira began to hatch a plan. She couldn't let Khalima be the woman everyone looked up to. She wanted Khalima out of the village, gone for good, so she could return to being the most important woman in the village, the one who controlled everything and everyone. Her jealousy burned hotter than ever, and her heart twisted with the thought of Khalima's strength. Late one evening, as the village grew quiet, Khaira gathered a group of her loyal followers and whispered her wicked plan. She would accuse Khalima of a crime she didn't commit, something so serious that the villagers would have no choice but to drive her away. Khaira knew exactly what to say to manipulate the situation, to turn everyone against Khalima. She would create a story so convincing that no one would doubt her. With that, Khalima's hard-won peace would be shattered, and she'd be cast out forever. Khaira smiled darkly as she plotted her next move, sure that this time she would win. She was ready to make her final move, to break Khalima once and for all. But fate, as it often does, had a different plan. Just as Khaira was preparing to set her plan into motion, something unexpected happened. The villagers, having watched Khalima's journey from suffering to strength, began to question Khaira's motives. They had seen Khalima's resilience, her transformation, and the light that now surrounded her. Word spread quickly of Khalima's healing, and the villagers, touched by her courage and kindness, began to rally around her. They didn't want to see her hurt again. The tide was turning, and Khaira could feel it. The power she thought she still had over Khalima was slipping away faster than she could control. It was no longer about Khalima's beauty or the scars on her back. It was about something far stronger, Khalima's spirit. The villagers had begun to see her not as a victim, but as a woman who had overcome her suffering and was now a beacon of strength and hope. Khaira's plan, built on hatred and jealousy, began to unravel. No longer was she the one in control. She realized too late that Khalima, through her pain and perseverance, had become something far more powerful than Khaira could ever be, a symbol of resilience and hope that couldn't be destroyed. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a storm unlike any the village had seen before suddenly erupted. The skies turned a deep, ominous grey, and the winds howled fiercely, shaking the very trees. The river, which had always been a calm presence in the village, began to swell and rise, its waters threatening to flood everything in their path. Panic spread through the village like wildfire. People rushed to their homes, securing doors and windows, while the elders gathered to figure out how to save the village from certain destruction. Khaira, watching from the safety of her home, felt a surge of satisfaction. She had always hated the village, and now, with the storm raging, she saw it as her opportunity to destroy Khalima's newfound standing once and for all. As the rain lashed against the windows, Khaira couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of victory until she heard the cries of villagers outside, calling for help. But then, from the chaos emerged Khalima. The same woman who had been cruelly scarred by Khaira's actions was now the one stepping forward, her heart full of compassion. Despite the storm's fury, Khalima's spirit was unshaken. She didn't think of herself. She thought of the people who had supported her through her darkest days. Without hesitation, Khalima ran toward the river, where the floodwaters were threatening to swallow the village. Her thoughts were clear: save the villagers, even if it meant putting herself in danger. Her bravery was evident to all who saw her. She dove into the swirling waters, rescuing those trapped in the flood and leading them to higher ground. She worked tirelessly, never stopping, even when the storm seemed to grow fiercer. Among the people she rescued was none other than Khaira, who, in her desperation to survive, had been swept away by the rushing waters. Despite everything Khaira had done to her, Khalima didn't hesitate. She pulled her stepmother from the flood, dragging her to safety without a second thought. The villagers watched in awe as Khalima, despite the scars of her past, put their lives before her own. As the storm raged on, Khalima knew she had to do more. With Mziwali's wisdom in her heart, she called the villagers together, instructing them on an ancient ritual passed down through generations. As the villagers formed a circle around her, Khalima began the ritual, her voice steady and strong as she chanted the ancient words. Slowly, the winds began to die down, the river's wrath subsiding as if the very earth was listening to Khalima's plea. The storm, which had seemed unstoppable, finally began to calm. The floodwaters receded, and the sky began to clear. The villagers stood in awe, watching as Khalima's spirit, a spirit forged in the flames of pain and adversity, calmed the storm and saved their lives. In that moment, Khalima proved that no matter how much cruelty she had endured, No matter how hard Kyra had tried to break her, her spirit could never be shattered. She had risen above it all, and her strength had become the village's salvation. Kyra, standing on the sidelines, watched in stunned silence. The woman she had tried to destroy had not only survived, but had become the very heart and soul of the village. The power Kyra once held was gone, and it was clear to everyone who the true leader was now. Khalima's compassion and bravery had won the day, showing the village and Kyra that the greatest strength lies not in hatred or control, but in the power of a kind and resilient heart. After the storm passed and the village began to rebuild, the truth about Khalima and Kyra could no longer be hidden. The villagers, who had once turned a blind eye to Khalima's pain, now opened their eyes wide. They remembered all the times Khalima had shown kindness, even when she had every reason to be bitter. They remembered how she had worked tirelessly without complaint, how she had smiled even through her suffering, and how, when the storm came, it was Khalima who had saved them all. Slowly, whispers began to spread, growing louder each day. People started questioning Kyra's actions, her harsh words, her cruel treatment of Khalima over the years. Kyra, who once walked proudly through the village with her head held high, now found herself alone. Her once commanding voice lost its power. The villagers, filled with shame for not seeing the truth earlier, turned their backs on her. Kyra tried to defend herself, weaving lies to cover her cruelty, but it was too late. No one wanted to listen. They had seen with their own eyes the pure heart Khalima carried, even after all the pain Kyra had caused her. Kyra's downfall was swift. She was cast out of the village, left to wander alone with nothing but her bitterness for company. The woman who once thrived on control and fear was now powerless, a ghost in the place she once ruled. Meanwhile, Khalima's life blossomed like never before. Freed from the chains of Kyra's cruelty, she stood tall among the villagers, her scars no longer symbols of pain, but of strength and survival. The elders, impressed by her bravery, wisdom, and kindness, appointed her as a leader. People sought her advice, listened to her words, and followed her example. Khalima brought unity and hope to the village, teaching them the power of forgiveness, resilience, and love. Children admired her, women respected her, and men looked up to her wisdom. She didn't lead with anger or pride. She led with a gentle heart and an unbreakable spirit. Khalima's beauty, scarred yet shining, became legendary. People from nearby villages came just to see her, to hear her story, and to learn from her strength. She became a living proof that true beauty is not found in a flawless face, but in a heart that refuses to give up. Even though the wounds on her body had healed, it was the healing of her soul that made Khalima truly radiant. She built a new life, not on revenge or hatred, but on compassion and hope. In the end, it was not Kyra's cruelty that defined Khalima, but her own courage, kindness, and unshakable spirit. And so, the girl once scarred by hatred became the woman crowned by love, forever remembered as the true queen of the village's heart. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this. Your support helps us continue to bring powerful stories that touch the soul and remind us of the beauty that lives within all of us. Thank you for watching, for believing, and for being part of this journey.